folks. It's me, Lacey. I'm really thrilled to be here today talking to Derek from the Botanist and the Barrel, which is one of our favorite local food producers. And we'll talk more about what they make in just a minute. But yeah, I've been admiring, Drew and I are super obsessed with finding like the localist of the localist, and also really love a good natural ferment. The less processing, the better. So Botanist and Barrel is a really good match for everything that we have going on. And we're thrilled. They are going to be at our trout dinner in a week or so, and they're going to be sharing some sampling with us. We've already done a lot of this with our food club and enjoyed. And we've actually been up to their farm several times. So I'm really excited to have them here live talking to Derek and learning more. We've even done the tour up there. So I feel like I don't know a lot, but I should, because I've participated in everything you guys have going on. But hopefully it'll sink in today and we'll all learn together. Derek, can you tell everybody where you are and where your farm is, and maybe just kind of give the whole sort of backstory? Is the farm a first generation farm? Are you a first generation farmer? Kind of just give us the backstory.
I'm not a first generation farmer. Our story begins in Cedar Grove at Cedar Grove Blueberry Farm. I have a background in pastry and dessert making. So that sort of naturally leads into fermentation and all things fermentation. We started becoming stewards of our farm back in around 2014. We took over Cedar Grove Blueberry Farm. There are about 1,200 blueberry bushes on the property, and we've spent the latter years pruning and clearing and maintaining the orchard, and this is where Botanist and Barrel came to life through natural fermentation. My wife Heather, her family they have a pretty direct root in fermentation. And in wine, their family is from France, and so they have a pretty direct lineage to fermenting, and so yeah.
Very cool. So, what inspired you to take over a blueberry farm?
Well, I've always had an affinity for berries. Being in my former profession, in just making. And Heather, her family, they have a 100-acre land preserve, if you will, up in northern central Pennsylvania. And so throughout their whole life, they've been foraging for everything from wild currants and choke cherries to raspberries and blackberries and mainly blueberries. So when that land became available for us to take over, we were thrilled at the opportunity to be able to have them to take care of.
Yeah, really cool. It's a beautiful property. That area is it feels like it's still kind of an up and coming area because you're so close to Durham. Is that maybe the closest city, or what would you?
That's it. Yeah. So we're about, Hillsborough would be the closest.
Okay.
Like metropolis, if you will.
Right.
But we do get a lot of people who come to visit us from Durham. Would be the largest city. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Okay. So explain some of the operations. How does one? I mean, was it a you pick blueberry farm or to start with? Is that how it was operating?
Yeah, it was, and it still is. Matter of fact, we're right in the height of the season now. And that's how that property started, and then we took it over and decided to produce cider. Myself, along with my wife, like I was saying, Heather, her brother Lyndon, and his wife Amy. So they are the the other three members of the Botanist and Barrel. But Heather's mom, Bernadette Pellissier, along with their stepdad Van Bennett, first secured the property, and that's how we became involved.
Oh, neat. So it's a family affair.
Family affair. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So you immediately were sort of like, let's just ferment these berries.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I've always, there's a collective there. So we've been interested in fermenting for years, through Heather's family, through my background, and like I said, dessert making. We've been interested, in fermenting, and then the leap to cider happened because, and this is pretty specific, certain fruit we weren't able to sell at the market, right? So you have on blueberries, you have this characteristic that will show up called exobasidium. And I won't get into all the science on that, but it's a little white blemish on the skin. Is completely benign. It's still edible, but people wanted perfect fruit, and so there's a section of our crop that we weren't able to get into people's kitchens. So we just decided to ferment that, co-ferment that on cider.
Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. What is it that causes? Is it just a bacteria that kind of floats in the air that lands on the berries as they're developing, or?
Yeah, it's like a genomic process.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was that. So, yeast is prevalent on the fruit, and so we do a lot of spontaneous co-fruit fermentation on top of cider.
Okay, so explain for me, because I know a lot of what we've bought from you is called wine, and then some of it I thought you were identified as a cidery. And so where is the line there? And is it? I mean, are they pretty much the same? I mean, is there no rule there?
Right. So the process is the same. It's just that apples make cider, and then grapes make, or any other fruit really can make wine. Yeah. So people think of, when you hear wine, so that's grape, and then cider is apple wine. So like the process is pretty much the same.
Okay. So any of your ciders have apples in them? Is that how that works?
Yes. Yeah. So the cider apple, or all fermented apple juice. Yeah. And so you do a Botanist and Barrel is a lot of co-fruit fermentation on top of the cider. So we're taking blackberries and raspberries and all different types of fruits, blueberries, of course, and we're fermenting those like in tandem with the apple juice, right? So you're bringing out, the fruit is adding a little bit more sugar. In the case of blueberries, we're adding anthocyanin from the pigment of the skin and tannins as well.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So I've seen, I think, even some posts about this on your feed about going up and even working with the folks where you're getting the apples and helping them maintain their orchards. And so I'm assuming you're just really, really into making sure you're getting local and healthful fruits and such to put in. What does that process look like? How do you find people to work with? And, what's driving you there?
So we have made friends, over the course of the years. And so a lot of times people will come to us and will say, we have this orchard, can you do anything with it? We're interested in working with you because we believe in your natural process. And so there's that, and there's a little bit of seeking out as well. My brother-in-law Lyndon is very keen on finding these things, as well as foraging spots too. And so this year, last year we were very fortunate to start our process of taking over a handful of orchards between Boone, Asheville, and then over to Southern Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So over a handful of orchards to procure those apples, and also in the process maintain and prune them. And this allows us to get like very, very close to the source of where, our fruit is coming from. And we are very dependent on orchards that provide us with the yeasts, in order for spontaneous fermentation to kick off and to happen organically, and so that's you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
Very cool. Yep. Yeah. Are you concerned at all about chemical use or anything like that farmers might?
The orchards that we're going to pick from are no spray orchards. So, there's that aspect of the other aspect of it too, is we're looking for, apples that are going to have, sugar, conversion from starch. We're able to, to get hands-on in the field and have a direct way to focus our efforts on the ferments,
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay. So I've been to your facility. It's huge. You have all this fancy equipment and the right things to get the job done. I'm curious, did you start that way? I mean, was this a kitchen, like a countertop start, or how did you begin?
Yeah. So when we started, we were just producing our test batches and carboys, just to observe the way that we wanted to, to evolve our practice, and scaling up, our operation,
Right.
And that started off very, very small. We graduated from carboys up to 1,000-liter tanks. We only had about 5 1,000-liter tanks, and we were only able to fill about 3 of those, leaving 1 for racking. And so over time, we've scaled up baby steps until until we're able to have a larger quantity of juice, but not too large.
Right. Yeah. You got to use it when it's ready, right?
That's it. That's
navigating the sort of making an alcohol product. Has that been tricky, or is it pretty straightforward? In terms of agriculturally, I don't know how that works in North Carolina. It seems like it could be messy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of just the regulation behind alcohol, or
well, I mean, I think when you think of a farmer's market, generally people, or farm products, generally people are selling something that they might have to have a kitchen that's certified, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. I would feel like it might be a little bit different with alcohol.
Yeah, it's just the alcohol board. It's not regulated through food. So you sell at farmers markets, and we give little samples, but it's we're able to do that just because of the alcohol code.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And the people who sell have to be certified to sell it, right? Or of age, or what are the rules
of age? Yeah. Just of age.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of the things about Botanist and Barrel is that every opportunity we get, people who are selling, are also helping out in the production process, and helping out in the harvesting, and helping out in all aspects of the overall operation. So when it does come time to where we're, sort of spreading our passion, if as it were, then we're able to sort of convey that to people, Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's a really neat thing. Usually about small operations is that you don't get somebody who's just the sales guy. You get there. They know the whole process. So yeah, I love that. Well-rounded employees.
Definitely.
Okay. So do you have any tips for folks who might be listening that are I've always wanted to try making a mead or a cider or a wine. But it sounds super intimidating. What
Right.
might you suggest to somebody who's interested in doing something like that?
Yeah. So, what we do at Botanist and Barrel is what you would call orchard to glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking for the right kind of apples. So you want to look for apples that are going to be well rounded in terms of acid and tannin and sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice balance. And then so the process itself is relatively simple, right? You have the fruit and you're crushing the fruit and you're allowing the yeasts to make contact with the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I it is important to note that a lot of the different wines and ciders that we make at Botanist and Barrel are what's known as pétillant naturel, which means that it literally is just the yeast from the orchard that does the fermenting, and we're monitoring that, right?
Mm.
How far along that process is and converting the sugar into alcohol, right? And so once we get to a certain specific point where we're bottling that cider, and then the cap of the bottle is trapping the CO2 and it's carbonating itself, right?
Yeah.
So that should be highlighted, because it really is a very, very simple process. We're not filtering or pasteurizing the juice. We're letting the natural expression of the fruit come through, right? I like to say that the fruit is the foundation, because we love that saying. It's like everything starts with the orchard practice and then the fruit, because that's going to give you the ultimate characteristic of the cider and the wine as well. Yeah.
Are there any? I mean, so you're not adding any yeast or anything like that to your?
No, generally we let it kick off naturally, just from the orchard. And so for anyone doing it at home, the thing that take into consideration is that it's just mainly observing, right, and then testing, because there are a few dependent factors. The time of year, right? Is it colder outside?
Right. Yeah.
That's going to determine how quickly your ferment's going to kick off. If you're doing it naturally, of course, pitch yeast on the juice as well. But talking about specifically in a spontaneous the spontaneous idea of fermenting, you're going to want to take into consideration the temperature, and also the sugar content of the juice. How much, you could say, how much food does the yeast have for the fermentation process, and then monitoring. So you're gonna once you notice, like, literally, foam starting to build on a cap, at the top, that's gonna be a visual sign of fermentation. And then you're gonna take what's known as a gravity, and you're gonna monitor how much sugar is being consumed within the juice.
Very interesting. Okay, so you're not even rinsing the berries or washing the fruits before you use them, or does that?
Generally, just water.
Yeah. Okay, and that doesn't wash away those yeasts that you're trying to capture. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And are there health benefits to having this versus, more like the pasteurized yeast added situation?
Probiotic for sure.
Really? Yeah. I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not stripping away any of the biome, off of the process. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you can taste it. I think, when you drink your wines, they taste like fresh fruit. They really do. They're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Very refreshing. And they're almost, I would say, they're not as tangy as like a kombucha, but there's just something more fresh about them, sort of similar maybe to a kombucha, I guess. But yeah, they're delicious. So where can folks access your ciders here locally, but also, I don't know, can people order from your website or what does that look like?
Yeah, we ship through Vino Shipper and that you can order directly through the website. Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Almost all of the states.
Awesome. Okay. And then there are local places that you can go in and get.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So all around Durham, Raleigh, all different
In
places.
Asheville? I think I heard there's some in Asheville too.
Asheville, yeah. We have our tasting room, our tasting bar, I guess you'd say, in Asheville, as well as all over.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I always enjoy when I see your name on a menu and try to get one of your delicious. And they're just always a little bit different. You know, I think that's maybe something people look for is like something that's going to be the same every time. But what I love is the experience that, you know, it could be completely different every time.
Yeah.
And that's the excitement, I think. Yeah. Always tasty.
Definitely. Yeah. It's natural cider. So it's the way that cider, was produced centuries ago.
I love it. So, okay, one more thing. I know people who are local might want to kind of come out and see the farm. Can you let us know what you've got going on up there?
Yeah, so we have food and music on the weekends, as well as some larger events that are kind of peppered through the year. Mm-hmm. Most notably, in the next few days, we have Pick-a-Ton, where we're roasting off a local hog, and then I'm actually putting that on pizza this time around, so that should be fun. Mm-hmm. And we have a fermentation fest coming up in September, I believe, and you can check those out on the website.
Oh, fun. Okay, awesome. All right, well, Derek, thank you so much for being on the call with me. I can't wait to have you out here in real life. Yeah. And,
I'm looking forward to it.
Great. We love what you're doing. All right, keep it up.
All righty.